Hi everyone, and welcome back to Language Unlocked, the podcast where we talk all things language learning, cultural exchange, and personal growth through mastering a second or even third language. I'm your host, Sarah.
And I'm Jake. Today, we have an exciting episode lined up because we're going to talk about one of the most common topics we get asked about: how to improve your English speaking skills.
Yeah, this is a big one. Whether you're a beginner, intermediate, or even an advanced English learner, speaking fluently and confidently is often the biggest hurdle.
Exactly. And we'll be sharing not just the usual tips you might hear, but also personal experiences, insights from experts, and some strategies that you can put into practice right away.
And remember, you can find the full transcript of today's conversation on our website. So if you're working on your listening skills, you can follow along there.
The importance of immersion. So, Sarah, let's kick this off by talking about immersion. This is something we hear a lot about when it comes to language learning. What's your take on it?
Oh, immersion is key. But I think people often misunderstand what immersion really means. They assume it's about moving to an English-speaking country, but you don't actually need to live abroad to immerse yourself in English. You can create that immersion in your everyday life.
Right. Immersion is about surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible. Listening to English podcasts, watching TV shows or YouTube channels in English, reading books or articles. It all adds up.
And let's not forget about music. Singing along to your favorite English songs is a great way to work on pronunciation. It's a fun, low-pressure way to practice.
Yeah, music is often overlooked as a language learning tool. And the beauty of immersion is that it can be tailored to your interests. If you're into cooking, watch English cooking shows. If you love tech, read articles in English. You're combining something you enjoy with language learning, which makes it feel less like work.
Overcoming the fear of speaking. One of the biggest challenges for learners, though, is overcoming the fear of speaking. I know for me, when I was learning Spanish, I was terrified of making mistakes. I felt like people would judge me.
Oh yeah, that's so common. But here's the thing: mistakes are part of the process. In fact, making mistakes is the fastest way to learn. The more you speak, the more comfortable you become, and you start to realize that nobody's expecting you to be perfect.
Exactly. If you're always waiting to speak until you think you've got it 100% correct, you'll never actually speak. My advice is to embrace the mistakes. When you mess up, take note of it, correct it, and move on.
I've found that setting small, achievable goals really helps with this. Like, maybe you start with saying hello or ordering food in English. It might seem small, but these little victories build your confidence.
That's a great point. And if you're practicing with a language exchange partner or a tutor, remember, they're there to help, not judge. They want you to succeed.
Practical tips for fluency. Okay, now that we've covered immersion and the fear of speaking, let's get into some practical tips. What would you say is the most effective way to practice speaking daily?
One of my favorite tips is shadowing. It's a technique where you listen to native speakers and repeat what they say word for word right after they say it. You're mimicking their pronunciation, intonation, and even their pacing. It's a powerful way to get used to the flow of the language.
Shadowing is so effective. I used that a lot when I was learning French. It helps with both listening and speaking because you're training your brain to process the language in real time.
And the best part is, you can do it with anything. Movies, podcasts, interviews. Even just short clips work. It's like having a mini speaking partner who's a native speaker.
Another tip I love is recording yourself. I know it sounds weird at first, but hearing yourself speak is a great way to catch things you wouldn't notice otherwise.
That's true. You can listen for things like your pronunciation, or maybe if you're hesitating too much on certain words. Plus, over time, you can track your progress and hear how much you've improved.
Exactly. It also helps to simulate real conversations. You can think about what phrases you'd use in certain situations and record yourself saying them. This is especially useful if you don't have someone to practice with regularly.
Vocabulary building and expression. Another big part of fluency is, of course, vocabulary. A lot of learners get stuck because they don't know enough words to express themselves. But building vocabulary doesn't have to be overwhelming.
That's right. It's about learning the right words for your level and focusing on the vocabulary that's relevant to your life. You don't need to memorize every word in the dictionary to be fluent.
Exactly. Start with words and phrases that you're likely to use in daily conversations. You can expand from there as you gain confidence. Also, don't just focus on isolated words. Learn them in context. For example, if you learn the word opinion, learn the phrase in my opinion as well.
Yeah, learning chunks of language, phrases, expressions, idioms, makes it easier to speak naturally. Instead of thinking word by word, you're thinking in phrases.
Another great method is using flashcards or apps like Anki to review vocabulary regularly. Spaced repetition helps you remember new words long term.
Creating opportunities to speak. So, we've talked about immersion, overcoming the fear of speaking, practical techniques, and building vocabulary. But here's the big question. How do you create opportunities to actually speak?
Great question. A lot of people think they need to have an English-speaking friend or a tutor, but there are other ways to practice. One idea is to join online language communities. There are forums, apps, and even Facebook groups where you can find conversation partners.
Yeah, language exchange apps are a fantastic way to meet people from all over the world who want to practice with you. You help them with their native language and they help you with English.
Exactly. And if you're not comfortable with video or voice chats right away, you can start by texting. Then once you build some confidence, move to voice notes or video calls.
Another idea is to attend online meetups or webinars that are in English. Even if you're just listening at first, you'll eventually feel ready to participate in the discussions.
That's a good one. And if you're in an area with a large English-speaking community, check out local events, like language cafes or meetups where people practice different languages. It's all about putting yourself out there.
Final thoughts and encouragement. So, to wrap things up, the journey to English fluency isn't easy, but it's definitely achievable. The most important thing is to stay consistent and not be afraid of making mistakes.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone learns at their own pace. Celebrate your progress no matter how small and keep pushing yourself to step out of your comfort zone.
That's a great point. And for those listening, just know that we believe in you. And that's something to be proud of.
Definitely. And as always, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover in future episodes, feel free to reach out. We love hearing from our listeners.
Thanks for joining us today on Language Unlocked. Until next time, keep practicing, keep speaking, and don't forget, fluency is a journey, not a destination.
Take care, everyone.